Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I am here. My friend Alexis is about to join me, and we are going to have a conversation today about, yay, here she comes, about the dimensions of wellness. And I cannot wait. Here comes Alexis. I always feel so accomplished when this works. Yay! Good morning.
Good morning. Can you see me?
I can. Oh, we did it.
Okay, hold on. I'm connecting here. Here we go. Hi.
Hi.
Good morning.
Drink coffee. Like we're having a real coffee date. Oh my God, we are having a real
I
coffee
made it
date.
a double just in case.
Well, this is not my first.
This is not my first either, Sarah.
So good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm in the throes of sleep training my 6-month-old.
And you look rested, but how are you feeling?
Yes. Good. It's just one of those times where he's super attached, but we're working through it. It's not hard. And he's my third, so I'm well versed in the process, but it's just always a little bit emotional when you're trying to wait it out.
It totally is. I think I've blocked that out of my memory.
Right. Right.
I'm so glad we're doing this. So,
Me too.
will you introduce yourselves to people who don't know you? And then I'm happy to do the same and then kind of set the stage for what we're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. So nice to meet everybody. My name's Alexis Maida, and I am focused on building businesses and brands that are centered around people's wellness. So I come from brand building and marketing background, and in 2020 made it an initiative as I was embarking upon my third son, and in a new entrepreneurial space, and also watching a pandemic take place, I decided that it was time for me to take what I focused on in the last, I would say, 7 years of my career, which is just these dimensions of wellness and quality of life, and take my branding marketing background and focus it to help build brands that connect their purpose as a business to a dimension of wellness for their customer and shareholders. And so it's an exciting time, and I've just been really passionate about diving into all of the connections I see and just how much crossover there is between this personal and business place with, how we should think and approach our dimensions of wellness, and how that's really all encompassing in life. And then also how much opportunity there is for businesses to really focus their services and products in a dimension of wellness and try to change their mindset to be on more of a measurement of improving that dimension for their customers. And kind of just shifting mindset, like I said, where it's the way things really operate, but business mindsets have gotten a little bit off in more of a focus on supply as opposed to demand. So that's where I am, and it's just like all I want to talk about these days.
Well, I've loved all of your lives that you've done by yourself, kind of setting the groundwork for the dimensions of wellness. And really, I think, and we're hoping that this conversation will be an ongoing one. So those of you who are tuning in today, we're hoping to kind of set the foundation of this conversation. And if you all are interested, hopefully it can be a monthly series that we can kind of dive deeper into the dimensions of wellness, because I think it's certainly something that either we're consciously or unconsciously seeking that
Right.
through. So can you kind of set the stage for us of what, in a really high level, what
Yeah.
are the dimensions of wellness, and how, like for me, I feel like I'm very in tune to my, probably not all, because you're going to enlighten probably many of my dimensions of wellness, but
Right.
can you walk us through them and kind of give people a tool of, like, if you don't know how to check in with yourself, how would you suggest that someone could check in with themselves?
Right. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. So many of us are focused on wellness in general and have, taking great strides in our lives to be conscious of certain areas of wellness. But I think what we miss is this understanding that all of life can be encapsulated in these dimensions. And so when you have awareness is always the first step for me, is just being aware of what they are, and then going through your days in a practice of kind of categorizing life like that. And then that awareness can bring an opportunity to take action. And so the dimensions, there's 6 or 8. It just really depends. It just matters if you take these other 2 and separate them out as well. But there's these internal dimensions of wellness, which are spiritual, emotional, intellectual, and then physical. And then there's these external dimensions of wellness, being social, environmental, financial, and occupational. And so you can see this kind of internal, external life, and really everything fits into these dimensions. You may think, well, social sounds so broad, but that's where all relationships go. So family relationships, being a mom, being a parent, and how your wellness within your family, with your children, that goes into the social category. Anything, your home would be in your environmental wellness. And so you can see that, like, no matter what your interests are or what you have previously been focused on, you can realize, oh, that's this dimension. And then maybe you hadn't realized that there is such a place of focusing on occupational wellness, or focusing on environmental wellness in its total capacity, as opposed to just thinking of, like, sustainability measures, or, clean air, clean water, that kind of thing. But you really can start to segment, and then once you're aware of them, realize, like, how am I dealing? That dimension has been completely off my radar. And just because it's off of my radar, it's been neglected, but it's still there, and I always say also, for all of us, and coming from a perfectionist background, a survivor of perfectionism, or, overworking performance measurement, basically you need to realize it's a journey. And that I always encourage people not to think that if you think of it as like a wheel, if all of your dimensions are on a wheel, you don't need to have the pressure to think you're going to be at a 10 out of 10 of every dimension. Life is different, and it changes and it evolves, and different things hit us in different ways at different times. And so really the whole process is just being, gentle with yourself and respectful, and understanding that they exist, and then taking the time that you can to dedicate to try to pay attention to them, but not putting the pressure on yourself to think that there's a perfection in any way. But the awareness in and of itself will help you to understand where you are, and maybe where you would like to be, and see some areas of improvement.
So if someone's new to this kind of reflection and consideration, how would you encourage someone to kind of start and really see, like you were saying, like, observe their dimensions of wellness right now, and see, as you mentioned, like, naturally they're going to be ebbing and flowing. Naturally, some are going to be higher than during, depending on what season of life we're in, or what actual day it is. I feel like
Absolutely.
Right? But is there a practice, or is there like one place to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the best thing, what I like to do, is start with just kind of like a personal assessment. And so what I would love to do is through Sarah to offer, an option to use a PDF of assessing where you are, or how you would rank yourself in these different dimensions. And then through that, it's just, kind of analyzing, okay, I think I'm really, not at a 10, maybe, in my physical wellness. I see, especially through this pandemic, I mean, we can all relate to the ways that it has influenced perhaps our physical wellness or our social wellness. And just be honest with the fact that maybe I'm, at a 3 out of 10, right now, and that's okay. And like, just being able to assess that, and then realize the areas that you can see potential improvement. And so I think that when you just take the exercise of familiarizing yourself with their existence. I'm obviously quick to memorize, like spout them off because I'm always concentrating on them, but eventually it will become that natural where it's like, oh, I just know that they exist. And then you can start to naturally realize what they are. And then if you do an assessment, it just helps um, the practice to get the thought process going, to really kind of take a reflective moment. It's like a practice of meditation on the fact that they exist, and then also where, thinking through your life on how you really feel you are in these different dimensions. And then through that, like you said, life goes and things change daily, things flex and change daily. But within a few months period, you may have, just through awareness, started to take a few different actions because you've put your attention to them, and then through the attention you can start to make conscious connections or actions on the fact that you're even aware that it exists. And so you may think a little bit differently the next time that that dimension is in front of you in some capacity, and just the awareness might make you to take a different action or think, or just a conscious behavior. And the hope is that with some potentially a monthly meet and live like this, or diving into them yourselves, finding the materials, you would start to find little hints and tips and ways that you could take small actions. No big pressure, but just ways that you may think like, oh, well, there is this really easy and accessible way that I could do this one thing. And I think that that's an area that I could certainly apply and not add stress or pressure or anything to my life. Instead, just improve it in some way.
Is there, and I'm totally putting you on the spot with all these questions, so
Yeah.
there's when we're talking, but have you noticed any trend or a familiar pattern when working with or speaking to like women our age who have children, around our kids' age? My kids are older than yours, but the same decade,
Right.
of like a dimension or two that you've noticed has been specifically ignored, and have you
Yeah.
found ways either in your own life or having these conversations, to really, like you said, put some attention on that and ways to kind of bring it back to life?
Yeah, I think that for moms in general to be focused on, a group of people, there's a tendency, because we are technically, I speak about this, we are responsible for all of the dimensions for our children. So it's really hard when you are the most responsible person, in addition to a spouse or a partner or someone else. Responsible for an entire life. So, and that does naturally tend to take precedence, and so when you're analyzing all of these dimensions of wellness and wanting such great wellness for your children, we tend to take a back seat in terms of our wellness across the board, really. So the areas that I think women get hit the most are these internal elements, especially because we're so busy day in and day out taking care of these children's dimensions that
Mm-hmm.
there's time is just an asset that's really hard to come by. And so the internal, always, I think in general, even for professionals or working adults, that those internal elements tend to take a back seat just because they're not front and center. So a spiritual element, or emotional, intellectual, and then physical, those tend to be like, I don't know how can anyone fit in a workout, or how can anyone take any time for self-care. I would consider these kind of self-care dimensions. But then also the social dimension, because we're so busy. And so, just tapping into other relationships, finding an opportunity through a pandemic to have connection with one another, and friendships and support groups and people that can be there for us, especially when these internal dimensions are being so ignored. It's really hard to feel isolated as well. So I think that those dimensions are the most typical conversations that I have with other moms and other women, where it's like almost, I mean, you know, I tend, a lot of women have a lot of sense of humor about it, where it's like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, you want to talk about physical wellness right now, you know? And that's understandable. And like you said, it's a season that you're in, and you have to be graceful with that and not put the pressure. But it also, being, you know, aware of it, may find there are ways that we could work with one another and kind of say, you know, there's this little way that you could do this little thing and it makes a big difference. And I think that connections with one another really help those tips. And sometimes, because we're so separated from one another right now, we aren't getting as much of that, where it's like, I had no idea. I was just going about life like this. And then Sarah told me something that she's been doing, and I had no idea. And like, for example, your recipes, you know, ways to cook in an effective and easy and simple way, and also have health at the forefront, you know, nutrition. And so I think that we all need to try our best to connect more, because then we can help one another with those internal dimensions that really get put on the back burner. As a mom, understandably, you know, it's just the stage of life that we're in.
Yeah, when you said it, like, I think that you nailed it when you were saying how we're not only responsible and, you know, empowered to care for our own dimension of wellness, but then layer on
Right.
the of 1, 2, 3 children. And then,
Yeah. And they're all in different phases themselves. You know, I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-month-old son. And so those 3 boys are in different stages, you know, and different phases of life, and their dimensions require different things. And we're all just trying our best to be on top of that conversation and what that even looks like, you know. And it's like, every day you're entering a new phase, you know, with these young kids. They're changing daily on what their needs are. And, you know, I rely so much on my social network and on my friends and people that I'm connected to understand what to do as their dimensions are radically changing, you know. And it's just an extremely hard place to be. And you know, especially right now, I think we can all understand that it's been a real challenge. And having kids at home, learning at home, you know, okay, so now you're not only, okay, you have your dimensions and you have all of your kids' dimensions, but now you're also a teacher, and you probably didn't have as much help at home. And, you know, layer on cleaning the house and having to grocery shop in crazy ways, and, you know, all of the things that were layered on top. There's just tremendous statistics on the impact that it has had on women, and the additional things that we've had to carry as a burden through this time period. So even though it's harder to think about your own dimensions, it's almost so much more important to have the awareness and do whatever's possible, or seek opportunities to find simple ways to make small improvements.
yeah, I feel like it's like that analogy that people say. It's like, put your air mask on yourself
Right.
first,
Right.
or you can through. You're
It's
not going to be
true.
down on them.
Yeah, it's true, because I mean, it's something where, you know, it's that you can't possibly be strong if you have no, you know, I always say these inner dimensions are like a foundation. And although I tend to present it as a wheel, like a lot of other people present this as a wheel concept, I firmly believe that those internal dimensions are more like a foundation to a house. And so if those aren't strong enough, we tend to pack our external so heavy, you know, with work and life. And then we have no internal foundation. And this gets so heavy that you're going to crumble, you know, and that's when we hit burnout, and when we hit depression, and a lot of these different, you know, effects of this cause of not having those internal dimensions well cared for. And, you know, we talk a lot about work-life balance and things that are just non-existent really for a working mom. And I consider that kind of balance being this idea of like, this is where your life has to be foundational so that all of this can be whatever it needs to be, you know? But we just think that there's some sort of balance up here that we seek, you know, balancing these external pressures, because social is external and occupational are both external dimensions. So we're trying to balance these two, and they are both sitting on top of something that is either there or not,
Right.
you know? So
Smart and so true. Um, well, before we go, because I feel like our time has flown, even though I
it's just like a tiny scratch.
just like it. Um, let's, if you don't mind, let's go through the 6 or 8 again and
Yeah.
give one like tidbit, like one like suggestion, or like, you know, check in with yourself in this way, or this is something that worked for me, or something like that.
Right. So if you want to go through the dimensions, it does help to separate them into 2 categories because then it's a little bit easier. So the internal would be the spiritual, emotional, intellectual, and physical. So you can kind of think of your body and then try to be like, what was that other one? Okay, yeah, so, you know, so spirit, mind, body, and emotions.
Okay.
And then you get into the external, and you can know environmental,
Mm-hmm.
occupational, financial, and social. So your relationships, your work, your bank account, and then your environment and where you live. And so that should fully encompass your entire life. And also, one quick thing, maybe this is the tip, maybe this is the takeaway. If something is in your life that isn't contributing to one of those dimensions, or you don't know where to place it, I strongly recommend analyzing the necessity of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is, you know, it's something that I think in this consumeristic world and what is thrown at us, a lot of things, products and services, are not contributing to a dimension of wellness. And so to me, it's been extremely enlightening to have that one factor where I can say, like, this is absolutely not contributing to my wellness in any way, shape, or form. And kind of giving myself the freedom to say, I don't need that, you know, and just simplify life. And there's a huge trend in minimalism these days. I don't know if everyone's been exposed to it, but I contribute that to this kind of practice of saying, this isn't adding to my life. It's just subtracting, because it's taking my attention or it's taking my time. And, honestly, I'm just being sold on this, you know? So that is something that has been life-changing, because that in any way that we can simplify our lives, then we have more of ourselves to focus on these dimensions. And also that key separation of thinking of internal as a foundation, and really analyzing, like, how am I in those dimensions? Are they even existent for me? Or on a daily basis, am I not able to think about them, or not able to focus on those? And that's when, you know, it's helpful to potentially start your day, end your day. Maybe your children are napping, maybe you're eating lunch, and even if it's not any physical exercise, but the thought of those 4, and just doing maybe a quick check-in and saying, like, did I do anything today that may have fed my emotional wellness? Or this week, maybe, you know, like, this week, was I able to do anything that fed my intellectual wellness? And just those 4, even if you need to simplify it down to that and just do a mental check and think if there was any way that you were able to contribute to those. I think that is something, as a mom, I can do, even with the 3 littles, you know, is just do a check-in. And
Yeah.
those small check-ins will encourage me to maybe find something to read, or, you know, meditate, or, you know, just take a breather, you know, go for a walk, go for a run, go up and down the stairs a couple times with some laundry baskets. I don't, whatever it is, you
Yeah.
know.
And I love the idea. I'm such a visual person that, like,
Right.
I love the idea of even putting those 4 words, like
Yeah.
emotional, intellectual, spiritual, or purpose,
Yeah.
and physical, like,
Yeah.
or something, because I do feel like sometimes when we have those 5 minutes
Right.
alone, someone's occupied or you wake up early and you're kind of like frozen.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
um, or just like if you're feeling bummed out and you don't really know why, you know, if you could glance at that and be like, oh, yeah, no,
Right.
I know why.
Right. Yeah.
You
And
know, that,
there's a lot of awesome and easy tips for each one of those dimensions. And so, I dive into those and I would love to dive into them a little bit more because I think the stronger we build ourselves in those, there is like a reciprocal effect on the external, the stronger that those four are, the stronger the other four have the opportunity to be, I believe. And so it is good, if you can visually put them in front of you on a post-it note on your mirror in the morning, or, in a note on the book that you're reading, like your bookmark or something, just to have them continually be in front to analyze and do it just a check-in, and then seek tips. And like we can hopefully provide more tips
yeah,
that are accessible and and easy to start to integrate into daily life.
yeah, and that are realistic and that make us feel like we're moving forward and accomplishing
Right.
something, and not, like you were saying, just adding fuel to the fire of
Right.
self-talk.
Right. The last thing we and all need is more pressure or more stress, So this is like, think of this as an opportunity to de-stress and potentially clean up life. Like, Marie Kondo your house, this is the way to do that in your just wellness, and find a lot of things in the closet that don't need to be there.
I love that. I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Yeah.
Especially with the change of season too. I feel like
Right.
there's some desire, specifically when we move from winter to spring, just to like
Right.
reevaluate, fresh and clean house and start over. And I think this is such a great tool to add to that
Yeah.
literal clean house.
Yeah, we could call it like, our spring cleaning, for our wellness. And that's really what, I agree with you. I think that we all hit a place where it's like, I just want to get rid of everything I don't need. Like the winter was heavy. It was like this last year was heavy. So let me
Yeah.
find the ways to just clean. And it doesn't always have to be tangible. A lot of it can be intangible too.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, we hope that we'll be back together again in a few
Yes.
weeks
Yeah.
on the dimensions more fully. And we would love people's feedback and questions. If there's a
Absolutely.
specific you want to start with, please let us know. You can
Yes.
comment on Save This to IGTV, and Alexis can do the same. So comment there or just message us. And I'm also hoping that we'll be able to share the PDF of the dimensions for everyone to use as a tool for their personal check-in and kind of see now how they're feeling. It could be interesting to do it now and then to do it like,
Right.
in just that could be really an interesting reflection too.
Yeah. And I think even just that reflection exercise is great to be like, oh my gosh, look at how it looks like a kite kind of, my kite was like this and then it went wonky like this and I know why. And, it's not a bad thing. It's just, why.
Yeah. Love it. Well, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you everyone for paying attention and providing us your attention. Enjoy the day, get some coffee and hang in there.
Is it pretty out today or cold?
So the North Fork is actually extremely cold. I'm wearing a turtleneck sweater, and I swear I banished these to the back of my closet last week when it was 55. But then yesterday it was 21 degrees. And so it's sunny and beautiful, but it's like teasing because you go out there and it's bitter. But I believe we're actually supposed to get a little snow on Thursday, and then it's going to hopefully,
Yeah.
it's going to make the turn.
Here, same weather pattern.
It's tough. It's tough.
All right, Alexis, thanks again.
Thank you so much. See you soon.